and a pickup truck.
It'll be the same here.
The same exact engine.
And it's class 6, you're saying?
Yes.
But the powertrains are a little different.
But yeah,
the gearing ratios.
With a computer, we can make it about any horsepower we want.
Yeah, true.
That sounds terrible. I have a 6.4 Ford. It has twin turbos. I put out a little over 600 horse and 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty outrageous for a pickup.
Yeah.
But I built it myself to be able to tow and things like that. Okay, in this corner here, it's called Engine Management, EMS again, and R. We have refrigeration. And here's your funny story. You just said it, reefers. When everybody hears the word reefers, they really don't think about refrigeration. The nickname of the one instructor here is Reefer Dave. And it's so funny that when the students are done,
I seen his van in the other shop.
yeah. When Dave, well, the student said, I wouldn't have never made it if it wasn't for Reefer Dave. The next day, we got our drug policy things that we all had to sign off on again. And it's just because it's refrigeration day. And it's wild and crazy. This will keep the meat frozen. We always joke about it. If you're hauling ice cream, this will keep that trailer at 10 degrees below zero. Now, the joke about these is they will maintain a temperature, but they work really hard to achieve a temp. I had a farmer that was a watermelon raiser back in Nebraska, and he bought a refrigeration trailer, and he said it's not working right. And I said, why not? And he says, well, we took all the watermelons straight out of harvest, and it took it over 4 days to achieve temp. A watermelon's about 80% water. Water is one of the hardest things to change temperature in. So it took it that long. There was nothing wrong with it. These are designed to maintain temp. So if you had already cooled the watermelons down to 40 degrees, stuck it in here and asked it to keep it at 40 degrees, no problem. But to bring it from 110 degrees down to 40 degrees took 4 days to do it.
Wow.
This is called a 608 certification. We offer the 608 certification. When you get it, if you get universal, you can work on anything refrigerated. A building, a casino in Vegas. I've had a lot of students that say, you mean if I don't like this, and I have my 608, I could go to Vegas and be working on refrigeration the next week? I say, yes, you could. Yes. So when you get your 608, you'll get type 1, which is refrigerators, small ice machines, stuff like that. Type 2 is this building and this. Type 3 is called a low pressure chiller. They're going away. Most everybody's went to a type 2, even in Vegas. But there are some out there still that they run low pressure chillers. And then type 1 is just, you have to pass type 1 to take any other test. So it's 4 tests. All right. We'll pick on Denver, Colorado. Don't think I have anybody there. But Denver, Colorado, once you pull your truck into a parking lot, you have 5 minutes in which to cool the truck down, back to an idle, and then it must be shut off by law before you can leave again. So this right here is called an APU, Auxiliary Power Unit. And this auxiliary power unit has a little tiny 2-cylinder diesel. Right now, if I take one of the Class 8 trucks, and it's hot out in Denver right now, it's over 100 degrees, that if I wanted to run the air conditioner, I could not by law at night. This thing has 2 things to it. It has a water-cooled jacket, and it has an alternator and an air conditioner. So now this truck driver can pull into that lot at night, fire this guy up. It will keep his batteries charged so he can watch his TV in there. And the air conditioner will keep his sleeper cool so he has a nice controlled, temperature-controlled environment and up to a triple sleeper. The water-cooled jacket on the good ones, they will plummet into the engine. Then this water-cooled engine here now heats up the block of the engine during the winter time. So when he gets up in the morning that's 5 degrees out, his block might be 40 degrees and his batteries are fully charged. That's going to make a much easier unit to start. Several companies are making brands of these. I always joked and told the students this would be a phenomenal go-kart engine. The torque on a diesel would be great. This thing uses 1 gallon of gas running 8 hours. A typical diesel engine will run 1 gallon of gas per hour. The other thing on these other ones here, those units over there, I have a lot of students that are now pulling the 4-cylinder engines out of these. These are 3.3 non-turbo. They fit really beautiful in a 2-wheel drive S10, a little Ford Ranger, stuff like that.
Bronco next
Yeah, and on these here, a guy, one of our students put in an S10. He was getting 64 miles to the gallon. His top speed was 58 miles an hour, but he was getting 64 miles to the gallon out of that.
Hey, what's this unit called?
APU, Auxiliary Power Unit. Okay, these are top-mounted ones, refrigeration. This has a small 3-cylinder engine, and you can basically almost take a cylinder and go on these smaller engines. For every cylinder, figure about 8 to 10 horse. Those are 4-cylinder, 2-cylinder, 3-cylinder. On this one, we're about ready to get rid of one of these. I'm very involved in the community here. I'm on the historic old railroad depot board. When they get one of these, they are clutched already and everything. I'm going to build an old-looking steam locomotive and tow kids around during parades and stuff like that. So since we have chassis fab, I'll have them build me a custom chassis fab frame. We'll paint the wheels to look like drivers on an old train and everything like that, and we'll have some fun.
What's the brand of these?
Probably a Komatsu or something like that. Perkins, Komatsu, and there's one more. Yanmar make almost all the engines for your, even if you go buy, let's say a Cat skid steer, it will have, it's not, the engine's not built by Cat. They'll have one of those 3 in there. Okay, on this side again, we have a lot of air conditioning equipment. This is really cool here. This one here has a complete working AC system in it. And the neat thing about it is I can turn the fans off. I can close lines. I can do all kinds of stuff to it to make it be a, so I can, and I have clear tubes in here so I can see when I have liquid gas, when I have vapor and everything like that. And they have digital temp meters on everything to show what your condenser is, what's happening inside of everything else. Like I said, I can cause restrictions here. It'll show exactly what happens if you have an AC problem on your car. So I could turn the fans off on the condenser and everything else. So it's pretty wild. I can show what blocked airflow happens up front and everything. And it makes it just phenomenal for diagnostics. You can see that right now it's turning into a liquid here. So this one right here is going to be your condenser up front. And then on your other one over here, this would be inside, and you can feel the cold air. You can see the temperature dropping on it. And you have your pressure readings on there. It shows how an H valve works.
That's
so
cool.
It should be. You should see how much it fucking costs.
Yes.
No, it's more than that. Like, at least.
Did Consu donate this to us, or did we build it?
Console Lab, we got a grant. I'll just make it really sound vicious. So we paid nothing for it. It was granted. We got a grant. We bought it. These right here are Freightliner. Freightliner helped us buy these two. The cool things about this one is all the doors work in this one here. So if you want your air on your feet or on the defrost or out the vents, you can watch all your doors work. And then this has the exact same thing, as it shows everything working in it. We also have a lock box on it. We can actually cause problems on it. So they have to diagnose. All these here would be ports to run a voltmeter on it. Because like I said, the better you are at electronics, the better everything is. You'll see we have a lot of Console Lab. We got a lot of grants. You can get teaching grants for that stuff. This one here is another one. This one here is all a CAN bus. So we have actually a computer inside here with a simulated motor so that we'll use all the bus networks to turn on lights and everything else. There'll be absolutely no connections between the headlights and there. We'll give a command into the bus will go on the computer then will send a signal. A typical Class 8 truck right now, brand new, will have up to 20 different computers inside of it, small modules everywhere that receive commands because your ECM on the engine is your master control. It sends signals to everything else. And I don't know, none of you guys here are old enough, but when I was on the farm when I was a kid, we had what was a party line. And we joke about it because everybody's like, ours was 2 longs, 2 shorts, and that means the phone call is us. But you always knew that no matter what you said, one of your neighbors goes, oh, Schusters are getting a call. Let's see what's happening. And that's why you hear the learned party line is everybody was listening to your calls. This thing is 2-sided, so we can set up 2 people going. An oscilloscope is coming in to be one of the major diagnostic tools again, because you have to be able to see signals on what's happening. So all these modules are all on the party line, but they will only accept a command from the engine control module. So if I tell it right here is idle validation, wake up, engine brake, turn signals, all these go into the party line to its main module, comes back out, and then causes the turn signals to work. There is not a direct wire on anything. I don't care if it's a car or a truck. On my Ford right now, it used to be that when I told the engine to crank, it was a wire that went through the neutral safety switch and then to the starter. Now mine goes into the cab module, my dash module. Then it goes to the ECM. The ECM looks at the transmission module to see if it's in neutral or park. And then at that time, it will give a command for the starter to crank. So now on mine, I bump it to crank and I let it go. It will crank for 10 seconds all by itself. If it does not start, it'll come up with a fault. If it does start, everything's great. But I don't hold my key into the start position anymore because all I do is tell it, I would like to start, and it goes through it.
Can you repeat all that? I kind of missed.
I learned that by accident.
Yeah. So again, all of these engines here have a box on them. So when I teach this class here, it's called engine management. I can come in here and I can take and knock off sensors. I will open the signal to them. So I can take cylinders and turn them off. I can take the throttle position sensor and turn it off. So if the throttle no longer works, the student has to pull the connectors and do a pin test and tell me what's wrong. The John Deere tractor behind you is a brand new 2021 here, because most tractors now have air conditioning. So this one is over here for them to pull the refrigerant out, put refrigerant back in, and test for leaks. This here, I always tell you on a John Deere, look at the last 2 numbers or the last 3 numbers, and that's your horsepower. So this is a 75 horse turbo 3-cylinder diesel. So we're getting 75 horse out of a small 3-cylinder engine. The torque is probably enormous. It's probably 400 foot-pounds of torque.
As much horsepower as my Honda Civic.
These are all the emissions here. We were talking about it. This is a diesel particulate filter in the middle here. It can be unbanded. The catalytic converter's at the top. We talked about the urea injection. That's down here. When we talked about it, I guess I didn't finish concluding to it. Half of our NX03 we get rid of by using the EGR and lowering the combustion temperature. Half of it is by the urea. When you hear about this diesel exhaust fluid, DEF, that means that we're going to inject this fluid. This fluid is synthetic urine. It sounds like the weirdest thing there is, but it is synthetic urine. Yeah, actually I take a cup full of it and I set it up on top of something in there, and then by the end of the 6-week class, it'll look like a chunk of salt, solid. Okay, so DEF here, when it gets in here, when it gets up to temperature, it turns into pure ammonia. And everybody says, why don't we put ammonia in there? Why? Because ammonia cleaner and that stuff, you guys, that just about drives you out of the house, that's 2%. Anything over about 30% ammonia is poisonous gas. So we don't want this anywhere near you. So when we turn it into here, the exhaust then heats it up, turns it into pure ammonia. It goes through another catalytic converter. This here, when it takes the ammonia and mixes with the NXO3, it fights it out to the death. That's the best way to tell them about it. So then we do our chemical reaction in here. It comes back out. Remember when I said it's 0.04% emission? That happens inside of there. Half of the NXO3 is gotten rid of in here, and half of it's done with the EGR. So if anything happens to the EGR, this cannot keep up. It's a combination of the two that makes our great emissions. Any questions? I will explain it. Talk to me. Ask.
So there's also a standard catalytic converter thing going on in here.
Not a standard catalytic converter. Very specialized one that goes with urea. Reacts to the urea and NXO3.
They call it a one box.
Yeah. Now it's kind of funny. It goes in one and comes out the other. And the last 6 inches before it comes out is a ammonia diffuser. Because the one thing you don't want ammonia smell coming out of the back of the truck. People would really dislike that. But right now I could start any one of those 4 trucks up over there and we could leave them running for an hour and you'd never even have that diesel smell at all in the shop. People do not realize, this is that's a 2011 there. That's one of the last years they even have a smokestack. Most of the newer trucks now have an exhaust out just like a car does. So it comes out underneath the truck. Since there's no longer any black soot or anything else, we can just run it as a clean pipe out near the ground.
No more coal rolling.
No more coal rolling.
What are the teenagers gonna do now?
Oh yeah, the teenagers are going to be pissed. Yeah.
What else is
Okay. Now this ends right now at EMS North. This is engines. You'll always hear everybody say a Gen 1 Cummins, a Gen 2, and things like that. This is Gen 1. We've thought about taking these out of here, and we had students throw a fit. They said, we came here to learn how to rebuild my Gen 1. So we have left it. We are going to leave it forever. But this is a Gen 1, very original Dodge that came out. This would be Gen 3. They had Gen 1, Gen 2 had a computer on it, but still had these single covers here. Gen 3 is 4 valves per cylinder, where this is 2 valves per cylinder. So the Gen 3 was a 24 valve, but the exact same block. You could interchange these here. The blocks are identical. This one here is electronically controlled completely, where this one here has one power wire. Really simple to install into a vehicle. You have a throttle pedal and a power wire. So if you want to build something with this, this is the easiest one to build, because on and off on the key ignition and the throttle, and you're done.
What year did it stop?
What year did this stop?
Just general.
92 is when it came out.
Well, they actually came out a little before that, but yeah, we were putting them in vehicles. Yeah, but right around there. They were out 2 years, went to a Gen 2, 2 more years, and then to a Gen 3. And this one's not even that hard. This one here has probably 10 wires on it, because you have to have a computerized throttle pedal. And then you have a whole bank going into here. These were the ones that were really easy to chip, because it was just really wild.
Right.
You ordered a chip, you unplug this off of your computer right here, you plug the chip into it, the chip plugged into there, and you were done. You just chipped your Dodge.
Put exhaust on there and you get 300 more.
Yep. Like I said, my truck probably from the factory was 600 foot-pounds of torque and probably about 450 horsepower. And like I said, I took it up to over 600 and 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. So I didn't quite double it, but it came close. This is really, really popular. It's called a C7 by Cat. People were putting these into pickups all the time. Just like I said, depending on the computer enhancement, this can be anywhere between a 200 to a 600 horse engine, and all it runs is a computer program. You can change it that much. They electronically control the boost and everything else. So we have several C7s, people love it. What I think was the best engine made ever by Cat was the 3406E. I love those because they were the mainstay on Cat for over 20 years. I've put these in everything from old deuce and a half militaries to farm trucks to everything else. Like I said, I'm one of those people that love to craft stuff. One of the coolest ones I ever did is I took a square body Ford, a 1974 Ford. We cut the floor panel and firewall out of it. We took a wrecked 60 Ford that had been rolled, and we did the same thing. We left the firewall and the floorboard in it. We desmogged it because we were licensing it as a 1974 Ford, so you could basically do anything you wanted to it. We rebuilt it. We put head studs in there because head studs are stronger than regular head bolts, because one of the biggest problems you have, if you boost it a bunch, you'll blow out the head gasket. So even my truck out there has got head studs in it and everything like that. And then we did that, and then we took the body and laid it back on there, and we welded it all back together. So basically we had a 2005 74 Ford. We put the leather seats back in, the new dash, all the radio, the electronic mirrors, and everything else. But it got licensed as a 74 Ford. Like I said, people tell me what they want done. I said, okay, no big thing. It's going to cost you money, but no big thing. I love doing stuff like that. So all the other engines are attached. We're going to get down here and we're going to go into red. The red is Cummins. The blue and the gray are Detroit. This is what was called an ISX. It was a very popular engine. It's still being built now. This one here is called an EUI injection. That means there is a rocker arm that pressurizes a piston inside the injector, but we electronically control it. On the newest one, which was back there, I walked by it, sorry, we went to high pressure common rail. That's what everybody's running, is high pressure common rail now. We take the diesel fuel, we run it through a cooler and then a high pressure pump. We'll take it up to 5,000 PSI to idle. Going down the road at full throttle, we'll boost that pressure up to about 35,000 PSI. It's a lot of pressure. Yes. I tell them if you have any problem, you think you have a fuel leak, you roll up a piece of paper and you put that piece of paper in there while it's even idling. You never use your hand. Never, ever use your hand. Well, that or it could inject it into your bloodstream too.
That would be really good.
Over here, what's that?
We gotta meet for class of 10.
Okay.
Is that right?
They're not going to start anything without us. We'll get around here real quick.
Don't cut Bryan.
You started late. They didn't let me start on time. Everybody must rebuild an engine. This is out of an old train engine. It was 2-stroke. It had 4 exhaust valves and it has intake ports on it. This one right here is out of a brand new train engine with all the funny things. We found this in a ranch field out here. Back here in the back is advanced. We have several companies, Penske, Bruckner's, and everything, will send us a complete truck with usually in the neighborhood of about 700,000 miles on it. And they will completely go through the truck, pull the transmission, clutches, everything like that out of it. We will rebuild anything that needs rebuilt. The last class had 2 trucks with bad engines in them. We had to rebuild them. One we did pulled the entire engine out. You'll always hear out of frame and in frame overhauls. The next one thing here we have is called FP&E, fluid power. That's why you see the large front end loader. The 2 John Deeres that are outside are brought in here and the students test the hydraulics on them. But since they're brand new John Deeres, we like them for displays during graduation and registration. Then they'll be brought back inside. On there we had some custom boards made ourselves. And on this, we're going to give them a hydraulic diagram. They will hook hoses up to this, and we will lift cylinders up and down. There's weights on the back of these. That's why they work so nice. We have things that are called sequencing valves, meaning something happens to happen first before it allows the pressure to go on to the next one. And just like you were talking, those really expensive boards,
Yeah.
here's this same board as that one in compact and all computer controlled. A lot of these boards are two-sided, so we'll have sides so that more than two groups can work on them at the same time. Over there we have this one here. This is called Fluid Power and Electrical. Now one of these boards I built myself. Very proud of it. I have it down there. It has all the headlights, turn signals, and everything on it. We have the ability in the back of the board to set faults. So I can control every single power and ground, and I can also short wires together. So that when something, I can make it to like two wires rubbed together. On this side, there are light bulbs. I'll make sure it's turned on. It is. They've left the keys in it on us. We can turn it on. Oh, somebody left it on. On them.
Better.
Even though it's plugged in, I doubt the battery charger could have stayed up with it. Let me verify. Yeah, it's on. Somebody left it running the whole weekend.
OMG.
But on this, I have everything on here that even when I crank it, it will show a starter light come on, an ignition light. We have glow plugs we can turn on. I have turn signals, brights, dims, everything on it. So it'll work just like a normal truck. I am going to turn it off, and I'm going to shut it off back here so that maybe this afternoon, if somebody wants to come over and look at it, it should be charged back up. Over here we have the console labs. The console labs, just like you said, are very expensive. This one right here, every single panel is separate. So they have to build me a working truck. So they have to put every ground wire, every power wire to the system on the entire setup. This is a trailer. I have trailer cords that we plug it, and then again they have to wire up an entire trailer. On across the way here we have skid steers. We have made quick connects onto the wheels. A skid steer and a bulldozer work exactly the same. They're just a miniature version of each other. So it's nice that I can put 10 skid steers in here instead of 10 dozers. So they can test all the hydraulics on the entire system. This is called powertrains here. On all of these trucks, they will have to pull the wheels, the brakes, the hubs off of the spindles and everything. They have to pull the transmissions out and examine the clutch. We wanted to give them the real world experience on that. This is a working brake board. Right now I have a problem though. They have turned the air off onto the building.
What?
But I have a complete working board here that when I step on the brake pedal, when I want to release my parks, I can do the entire thing on that and show them the workings of a brake board. We did here. All of us instructors just built it. We took old parts. We buy a lot of wrecked trucks, and I built a huge amount of mock-ups. So in this class, they also have to overhaul a 10-speed manual transmission out of a semi-truck is one of their comps. They have to rebuild a through-drive differential. They have to pull a known working good differential out, because in most cases now we don't rebuild much, we replace.
Yeah. It is cheaper.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is the warranty. Right now, if I rebuild a diff and stick it in the truck, I have to warranty it. If I have a national company stick a diff in the truck, if there's a problem, they have to warranty it. And that's it. We'll get you over to your class. I saw some of the other tour groups running around. Everybody got a late start. We got a late start on breakfast. We got a late start on everything. I see a few people taking pictures. We have banners.